Travis Wayne Goodsell. I've been trying to warn everyone with publications, with my former website, with my former YouTube channel, with this YouTube channel, even talking to my former home teachers. Nelson did away with home teaching, and so they were taken away from us, and no longer am I visited by the church. But this was what I was warning about. When I learned of the total solar eclipse on the 4th of November 2016 on my local Fox 13 News Utah, I was certain that the tetrad before it in 2014, 2015 was indeed the start of the Latter-day Signs. And now we have the final plague, the coronavirus, as Trump is trying to gaslight us, just like the anti-measles people trying to tell us that we don't need measles shots, and people believed, and then people got the measles. And yes, we don't trust our government. You know, X-Files illustrated the government secrets that they're keeping from us as old files get released to the public, and we find out the atrocities that our government has been doing, human test experimentations on us, poisoning us, murdering us with their human experimentation, with the nuclear tests, poisoned, radiated southern Utah Mormons, with even MK Ultra, which has hit the news lately, in Mormondom anyway, and plutonium feedings. Yeah, our government used to feed humans plutonium, both orally and in injections, as well as exposure. It's horrifying. But they have brainwashed the masses so that we don't resist. They are the Borg, and we have been assimilated. And they direct us as to what to argue about, which is Democrats and Republicans. They've divided us into two tribes. And those two tribes have gone to war. And so, yes, this is the last plague. If you're unfamiliar with the story of Moses, this was the last plague in Egypt. The firstborn killer. The darkness was before this one. And so it's kind of hard to illustrate a plague, a virus, in Hollywood, other than a dark shadow. But collapse is imminent. And as doctors, real doctors, not Trump, are informing us, is that even though this is the worst ever on record, worse than SARS and MMR, whatever that was, combined, that this is not going to be as bad as it will be in the fall of 2020. As they cite something that happened in, I think they were saying 18 and 19, or was it 19, 18 and 19? But that also was a bad one in the spring, and then in the summertime it went away just like that, magically. But then it came back in full of vengeance in the fall and just wiped out everybody. And this is expected to do the same thing. And this is already bad, and we've still got another month. So no shots for this at all. Nothing. Not for another year. Although I did have a dream this morning that my blood was the cure for the virus. Very curious. Huh. Yeah, I remembered my dream. But, I'm very curious. So, the church's lawyers, Curtin and McConkie? Yeah, Curtin McConkie. At 50 East South Temple, number 400, 84111. They'll be receiving my lawsuit, my complaint. Oh, man. The neighbors were burning in their backyard last night. They smoked me out of my apartment. I'm still experiencing the residual effects of it. My goodness. They're going to make people think I have the coronavirus. But yeah, as a firefighter, I had to wear the oxygen mask, or the oxygen tank, the mask and whatever, when I was going into fires, because you just can't breathe in smoke. It kills, as one particular fire sadly exposed. Yeah, it was sad. The guy thought he was saving the little girl that he thought was still in the house. And so he ran into the home to try to find her, and made it to her bedroom in the back of the house, right in the area where I was assigned to hose down. And he didn't make it. He was overcome by the smoke and collapsed right there, just a couple of feet from the door. The little girl was at somebody else's house that night. Sad. We know that he died from the smoke inhalation because of the mouth. The fire chief was teaching me how to be a fire inspector, grooming me, I guess, to be the future fire chief. But yeah, I still remember that day. It was a cold one. You know, shooting the water getting all over, even wearing the gloves, soaked through the gloves, and it just froze my hands that early morning. Oh. But yeah, smelling dead flesh got me woozy. Didn't throw up at my first 2 children's births that I was present for either. For Clayton, I knew that I was going to get woozy, and I made sure to sit down first. So, you know, what was I talking about again? I tangented away from my conversation. So, lawsuit will be presented to them by the federal officer of the Postal Service on Monday, and people have expressed their concern. No, you need to get it certified and prove. No, this is a government matter. The law specifically states that I have to attach the law to the filing for them, the 2 copies even, so that they know that this is the law and they can't get out of it. This is how to serve somebody, is that you have to pay a service processor for normal cases if you can afford the case, or if you can't, you file for informa pauperis, and if you're approved, as I was, the judge must order the motion for service by the U.S. Marshals. But the judge refuses in my case. For the first time in all recorded history, a judge refuses to follow the law. Obviously, that's not entirely true. I'm sure there's been plenty of judges who have been bribed and extorted and threatened and been criminal themselves. But this is what I'm having to deal with the church. And what's interesting is that I can use the contempt of the judges against them, against the church, to prove my case, which is why the church can't allow this to go to trial. They have to figure out some way to settle with me. And I put in my request for relief, I'm not accepting a little settlement through some mediation, arbitration, whatever. It ain't gonna happen. They attempted to murder me. Mormons are furious with me, as I've been demonstrating on my channel. You know, Mormons hate me. They want the thumbs down to illustrate it. And haha, nobody can see your thumbs down. Not anymore. YouTube allows me to hide them. But I still see it. I know Mormons are upset. Mormons are wanting the church to be allowed to commit crimes, and they don't see it as crimes. That's the scary thing, is that when you interpret your actions in such a way that you justify criminal behavior, you deny people the right to life, liberty, and property, and you don't see it as a crime. Those are the 3 main laws in our Constitution. You violate those, you commit a crime. It's that simple. And yes, our courts have manipulated the system to allow certain criminals to go free and other people to be wrongfully accused and be punished. Everything's all messed up in our society. But So Monday, Kurt and McConkie will be checking their mail and receiving my complaint. And they can't do anything about it. They can't hide it and say, oh, we never got it. Because the law says that first class is good enough. The law. And it had to be attached with the complaint. 2 copies. They have to send me back with the self-addressed stamped envelope that I gave them. And, as lawyers, they cannot lie in their job. They have to tell the truth. They have to be honest for their client. And so, the church can't get away with this. This is what the church is afraid of. The church is terrified of me and my lawsuit because they had me disappeared. And why? Because they blacklisted me back in 1998. So they had me disappeared in 2008. And why? Because I'm a translator. And all Mormons understand this. Because all Mormons believe that only the president of the church has the special gift of translation. It's a science, not a gift. But the church got busted by me, one of their own, because I believe Joseph Smith was right. And so I wanted to know, how did Joseph Smith do this? What do these facsimiles say? If they're in another language, what do they say? The explanation, that's not a translation. That's just an explanation of them, describing them. What's the translation? And nobody's able to give me an answer. So I had to search for the answers myself. As I've told you in another video, that's how I was raised as a child. You don't tell me no. You don't tell me that I'm not allowed to have the answer. That will get me to rebel. That will get me to disrespect you. That's why I did the other video about respect. The church demands respect. People in authority demand respect. And they don't understand that when they're corrupt, when they're withholding information, when they're putting people in bondage, causing people to suffer, they think that they're supposed to still get respect. No, you're not. You're going to get people protesting. And so for you to then turn around and blame the victims by calling the protesters domestic terrorists, by locking them up, I'm sorry, you're not winning any points with anybody. You are King Nothing. In that classic Metallica song. And so if you've read Moses, after this plague, what do the Israelites take with them into the Saudi Arabian desert? The wealth of Egypt. Moses was suing, and he won because he gets to take the wealth of Egypt with him. Wasn't exactly historically accurate, but as a symbol of the last days, for the last days Moses, which that's how the Jews view their Messiah of the last days, of the story of Moses as the type and shadow, as the symbol, as the signs to look for. And so I'm not sure if the Jews still know of this, if the Jews are freaking out because they see the connections. They should. They study the Torah regularly. They're looking for their Messiah. But Moses was filing a lawsuit with Pharaoh. Pharaoh was refusing and resisting, trying to extend out the lawsuit as long as he can, denying the motion of service of process. But Moses won and got the wealth of Egypt. As he was able to lead the people out. But he never really left Egypt. Canaan was a part of Egypt back then. Nobody remembers that. It's very weird. So let me go to the Doctrine and Covenants. Lead them like Moses. Yeah, there we go. So Mormons. Let's see. Mormons in section 103, verse 13. Your redemption and the redemption of your brethren, fellow Mormons, even their restoration to the land of Zion. Not Utah, Zion, which Joseph Smith intended originally to be in Illinois, to establish no more to be thrown down. Nevertheless, if Mormons pollute their inheritances, they shall be thrown down, for I will not spare them if they pollute their inheritances. Oops! That was both literally and figuratively polluted here in Utah, as the city of Moroni has experienced the latest pollution. They can't boil water even, because that'll just make it worse. Behold, I say unto you, the redemption of Zion must needs come by power. Therefore, I will raise up unto my people a man. Not the second coming of Jesus Christ. A man who shall lead them like as Moses led the children of Israel. For ye are the children of Israel and the seed of Abraham, and ye must needs be led out of bondage. Utah has put us in bondage? Isn't this Zion? By power, and with a stretched out arm. And as your fathers were led at first by Moses, even so shall the redemption of Zion be by a man like Moses. It's right here in your scriptures, Mormons, and you just refuse to believe because the church has deceived you. So Doctrine and Covenants, section 85, verse 7. And it shall come to pass that I, the Lord God, will send one mighty and strong, like Moses. They're connected, guys. So even though Joseph Fielding Smith came out with his first presidency statement saying, "Oh, this is null and void because the bishop repented," it's not to the bishop. The bishop doesn't become this kind of person, holding the scepter of power. The bishop doesn't get a scepter of power. He doesn't rule the world like John's man-child in chapter 12 of Revelation. No, this is not a bishop. To set in order the house of God? No, a bishop is not in charge of the temple. He only does the worthiness interviews for the recommend. He doesn't set in order the temple. Only the Melchizedek of the church, of the kingdom, the high king, the King of kings, Lord of lords, the great high priest, Melchizedek, Pharaoh. And no, all Mormons miss this. They're all thinking Jesus Christ is coming again. Beyond the mark. You're looking for somebody that's not going to come. And I warned you about this. Albert Pike, remember? Remember that video? It was recent. He wrote the letter to Giuseppe Mazzini and said, hey, I know how we can destroy the world and destroy Christianity once and for all. The darkness of Christianity. We expose them as frauds. We get them to cause the end of the world. And because their God is a fraud God, he won't show. How can a supernatural being that cannot be comprehended by man appear in the flesh for men to comprehend? It can't happen. Thus, the Illuminati knew there would be no second coming of Christ. Because it has to be a physical person who has to live and exist within the laws of physics. And so any God created that violates the laws of physics does not, cannot, and will not exist, and will not come for a second coming. That's their plan. To take away the hope of Christianity by getting them to cause the wars, the plagues, the violence. As Christians have done it, the fundamentalist Christians, that South Korean group spreading the virus around the world to bring about Jesus. The fundamentalists who put Trump into office, along with the Russians' help. All because Trump will bring about the second coming of Christ. And then they pushed, once he was president, say, hey, President, get the Jews, give them the capital of Jerusalem and Israel. It'll be great. And then the Chinese and fundamentalist Christians telling Trump that he's the chosen one. And so, yeah, Christians brought about the calamities we now face. And you don't fulfill God's will by fulfilling Lucifer's plan. You're not the good guys. Because think for a moment, Mormons and Christians, if you're fulfilling God's will by being the bad guy, what is prophesied to happen to the wicked? Oh, but we're fulfilling God's will, therefore we're not wicked. Oh my God. What happens to the wicked? You guys caused this. You're the wicked. What happens to the wicked at the second coming? Second coming. You die. The wicked is destroyed. The wicked are at war. We're all human. We're supposed to love each other. There's more than enough room And you say, oh, but carbon dioxide is increasing because of the increase of humans. Yeah. What absorbs carbon dioxide? Plants. We need to stop deforesting things. Stop burning the forest to the ground. That compensates. The photosynthesis, remember? We were taught it in elementary school. It puts oxygen from carbon dioxide back into the air. This is why they purposely increase the temperature of the earth. Because of Malachi, the day of burning. They purposely did this to destroy the earth and fulfill the prophecies, to cause Christians to lose hope, because no second coming of a supernatural being will appear. He can't, because he's supernatural. It's not natural. He will not appear. He will not come. It doesn't exist, because he's supernatural. Whole of Christianity got fooled, and Mormons are now believing in Christianity. They've changed the doctrines, thanks to Brigham Young. And the evangelical movement was embraced by Mormons as well, as they embrace the idolatry of evangelicals. And you know what I'm talking about, because those were my popular videos on this channel. Porn. That's idol worship, guys. When you think that porn is something to fear, you've created an idol. It has no power. Oh, but those women are so alluring. They lure men like Lilith, like Jezebel. Gotta teach sex ed, guys. Can't have this abstinence education crap. Alright, so as you can tell, I woke up early. I still have 50 minutes until I have to go running. So I'll save and upload this video on my movie maker. And maybe to YouTube, we'll see. So, just so that you know, the Mormon Church's deadline, their lawyer's deadline, is now the 31st of March. At 12:01 a.m. that morning. Which means the 30th of March is the technical deadline. They have to file before midnight. And so, because the clerks are cutting off the docket, no, we're not showing you if anybody made it until the midnight after. So, the 31st is when I'll find out. And if the church decides we can't defend against this, we're not going to respond because the lawyer or the judges will have our back, then yeah, I go in Tuesday and file another entry of default. So again, I will have won my case. So right before conference, and the leadership meeting's been canceled because of coronavirus. And like I said, it's going to get worse. The church is going to continue to say, okay, nobody outside of Utah is allowed to come to Utah for this. We don't want to cause the spread of the coronavirus. And then if it gets to Utah, you know, I don't see any Mormons killing lambs and spreading the blood on the doors. That was symbolic, metaphorically speaking. But I don't see it happening, symbolically speaking, metaphorically speaking. Mormons are in big trouble. There were Mormons on that cruise ship, by the way. So, alrighty.